viewers, the Uganda police has this week made to the country two fundamental statements in different categories. One addressed on subject matter of the National Unity Platform countrywide mobilization, where they've suspended until further notice the countrywide mobilization of the National Unity Platform at the backdrop of, the controversial speech that was made by the party leader, Honorable Chagulanyi, in Kasana, Luweero. And that, these statements were encouraging hate speech, division, and sectarianism, and therefore they are not tolerated, and therefore these campaigns need to be put to halt. In the second phase, the Uganda police still did make a response to the party chairman of the Forum for Democratic Change, Ambassador Honorable Birigwa, and told him that they will not provide security to the extraordinary delegates conference that the chairman called, scheduled for this month in September. Does it mean that they will go ahead to stop that particular conference? Well, that is all about the crisis in the Forum for Democratic Change that we're here to delve in and unpack. And to do this, viewers, is a panel of distinguished citizens. And it's now my honor to introduce them to you, and in no particular order. A regular on this show and from the National Resistance Movement Secretariat is its Director for External Affairs, and that is Council Retired Major Awich Pollar. Major, we are happy to have you.
Thank you, and greetings from China. We have been from our comrades in China, and we had a very fruitful visit. Happy to be back.
We are very happy to have you. So they say ladies first, but today I will break the law and I will introduce the gents first. The gentleman in the middle is Joseph Ochieno. Joseph is a UPC Ideologue and a media personality. Joseph, we are happy to have you.
It's a pleasure to be here. Very sad that we're discussing division in this country. And yes, but I'm here to be part of this conversation. I wanted to make sure that I was here because it's a topic that we need to be able to sort out, because this country is one, the Republic of Uganda. We need to have it for everybody.
Yeah, true. From the Electoral Laws and Governance Institute is Council Charity Kalebo. Is that correct? This
Yes.
time I got it right.
You got it right.
Charity, we're happy to have you.
Thank you very much, and I'm happy you introduced me as Kalebo.
Yeah. At least this time I didn't forget.
Take this one.
Yeah.
You got it wrong.
Yeah, but we're happy to have you. You want to say hello to the viewers?
Very good morning to our viewers, and happy to be on this show. I think the exciting thing about today is that we reflect about things that are critical. If we ignore them, we'll go down the drain. If we pay attention to them and we are able to make good sense, then we build Uganda.
Fantastic. Our guest this afternoon is Winfred Mugambwa. Winfred is the Executive Director of Rights for Her. Winfred, we are very happy to have you.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's the first time on the show. How do you feel?
I feel happy,
Yeah.
but a little bit nervous.
Nervous?
Yeah,
No.
because of that.
Why not? These are very kind people around you. Joseph, let me just begin with you. Did you take off time to listen to the address that the Honorable Chagulanyi made in Luweero? And if you did, what do you make of it?
I did not, but I follow these things, and I'm advised by my young, fantastic team. But it also happens around the time when I was very busy. It also happened around the time when I continued to mourn a young godson of mine who died in London in the very week in which he was supposed to be starting university. So it has been a bit of a struggling time for me. But that said, I followed some of the leading things in the press. I must say that until the commencement of this program, I did not have any specific, and I'm not yet still sure about the speech as written, because it was in Uganda and literally challenged in Uganda. I am not yet very convinced that out of that speech, on the basis of my understanding of the history of our politics and history of our politics of identity, that there was anything substantially major that should arose the conversation at the level in which it is, including possibly consideration for litigation. It is the case that as UPCs and as Ochieno, I reject and detest identity politics. It is the case that I have taken strong exceptions with my friends in NRA, including from the time when they came and they're starting the game, including politics of them versus the other. But also I had experience knowing that different communities at different times, politicians tend to invoke emotions of their base. And that requires leadership, I think, except for Milton Obote, who I don't know which other leader has not sought his or her base to try and aruse and present it as politics with them and us. But after 40 years, and particularly when at a time when we're looking for a visionary leadership to take us in a new direction as a country, to build on the basis of our histories, both bad and good and bad, I'm not sure whether there is a space for identity politics in this country. But as I understand it, if it is the case that Robert was talking about them versus us, which again during break, before we came on air, we're having conversations, including some of my colleagues here, whether we don't know whether they say we versus them, what basically it generally means. Yeah. If that is the element of definition, then I wait for my two land special friends to explain. Yeah, but generally from that speech, I'm not quite sure whether it should be a headline thing. Right. And if it's coming from NRA versus, say, Chagulanyi, it's rather cheeky from NRA because they've got a terrible record on the question of identity politics in this country.
Christian, can you paraphrase for us the words? Like, could you attempt to just paraphrase the words that were said in Luweero, just to lay the context for this conversation?
Okay, so the Honorable Chagulanyi said they came, the rebels that came through Luweero came when they did not have underwears, but now they didn't have a second underwear. Bali tebaina underwear eyokubiri. But now they have underwears and they have taken over the land of our great grandparents, and they have a lot of square miles of land. And I think beyond that, he also said the people in Luweero had supported the rebels when they came, but they have not benefited much. Many of them are still disillusioned. They have disease. Education levels are not sufficient. And is saying these issues needed to have been addressed at least in the last 37 years by the existing government or the rebels that took over government at that time. And I think that is what I pick from.
He also said that
his speech.
Bayagala okuzimba obwakabaka mu ttaka lyaffe. They want to build a monarchy on our land.
Okay, that was the last part of they want to build a monarch on our land. That when the ruling president exits power, he wants his drunkard son to take over the seat, which would really look like a monarch. Yeah. So that is the summarized speech.
So what do you make of it?
Well, what a mixed basket of fruit. Why? Because one, why was Chagulanyi on a mobilization campaign at this time? We need to think about that. We also need to think about the fact that the audience he was speaking to was elated. They responded to this message with a lot of happiness. So I make of his speech as their sentiments, which we can never run away from, the sentiments of the people in government and the ruling government have so much wealth, they have amassed so much at the expense of the local Ugandan or citizen, and especially at the expense of the people of Luweero, who seem to have sacrificed so much in the 1986 war. Remember, we have skulls that are counted at within the range of 5,000 from a historical perspective. Whether that number is accurate, or it is a speculative number, we also can't confirm because the texts differ. There are those who say it's 1,000. There are those who say there are 5,000 skulls. There are those who say there were 500. The number changes from different texts that you keep reading. But because they lost people, they lost relatives, they lost families, they lost farmlands, hoping for democracy, good governance, and good livelihood, you would have expected that Luweero was as good as Kampala. But it has not happened. In 36 years, Luweero is not looking like Mbarara. It's not looking like Kampala. And Mbale also, which used to look very nice, has gone down. Mbale is looking very dirty. And Joseph here will tell you, Mbale used to be one of the top-notch cities here. Go to Tororo. His Tororo, I've not been there in a very long time. But he's closing his eyes. It means Tororo is not doing well at all. So what we needed to have seen was transformation of these cities and these places within 36 years, and that hasn't happened. And Kyagulanyi was saying this needs to change, that NRM has some positives it has achieved, but it has failed to show concrete growth across the whole country. We just have pockets of growth in certain places. The only part I find unfortunate in his statement is when it draws the them against us, because I believe we're all Ugandans. And so when he says they came, who are they that came? This war, as we read about it in the books of history, was it fought by aliens? Was it fought by Ugandans? Isn't it that the people in Luweero believed in the rebels, that the rebels had come to help to rescue them, and that is why they supported the war? You know, I want to think of it that by the time they joined the war, they were convinced our fellow Ugandans are trying to help us to be liberated from a dictatorship. Because remember that time there was Idi Amin. And so many people had been disappearing in boots. Nobody had accountability for who was being killed. Uganda was being ruled by decree. People, let's not forget these things, because these things are historical and they are real. And the possibility of us going back into those things is also real. Tomorrow we could wake up and we are going back properly 100% to Amin. And we think that maybe the president who is coming is as good. When Amin took over from Obote, Ugandans celebrated. They danced on every street corner. Guess why? Because they knew they had gotten rid of a terrible dictator called Obote. Not knowing the one who had come on was going to take people in boots and kill them and take bloodshed. It's not to say that the NRM is so clean that for them they don't have bloodshed. They also have bloodshed. Even in 2021, we still have numbers of people that are not yet accounted for in the electoral process and other processes. We've seen many people who have died and whatever. But because they are not clean, does not equate them to what we read about 1966 crisis, Amin era, Obote II. Because Obote II seemed to have set the pace for all the subsequent upheaval that Uganda suffered until the year 1986, when NRM begins to cause a bit of stability. I have seen so many intellectuals and elites saying the NRM, this stability, what is this stability? But when I think about it in terms of Beirut, I think about it in terms of now West Africa and what is happening in Bongo's land. When I think about it in terms of what is happening in Zimbabwe, in Sudan, in the Congo, then I think that actually we are fairly a stable country. So in view of what Kyagulanyi said, the only critical thing I find there is when he says them and us. I prefer a person who builds a nationalistic picture for all of us, because as it is right now, we have integrated. Everyone is a brother of another. If I begin by thinking about another as them and them thinking about me as us, then I am creating a wall, a divide, which I detest, I speak, even if it is coming from Banyankore, even if it is coming from Bahima. The moment there is a creation of them and us, I detest it.
Yeah, it is.
And if it is Buganda and it is them and us, I detest it. Because for me, for example, I am an amalgamation of so much, and I have talked about this historical perspective for a very long time. I even have children born in Buganda who are my children. My sister's children are my children, isn't it?
Yeah.
Their father is a Muganda.
So,
So if you create the them and the
vice
us,
versa.
what are you saying? And I carry them wherever I go. So what are you saying? So for me, that is a no-go area. And I think every political figure, whether it's the president, whether it is a political candidate, we should guard against the sentiment of them, us.
Thank you. Retired Major, how deep are these statements that were made? Because if you go next door in Rwanda, 1994, what led to over 500 people dying in a period of 100 days was partly a statement made over a radio talk show that incited, one group against the other. So when you look at the police statement calling off the NUP mobilization, and part of their grounds is that there are sectarian, statements being made that could cause, instability. I don't know, but because the response from the NUP is that these are NRM propagandists who are only trying to, cover up the real issue, and in fact, the NRM has in practice been, practicing all this sectarianism. I mean, that is them in their defense. I don't know. How do you perceive those statements and reactions?
Thank you so much. In particular reference to statement that caused disharmony, you can see them. Some of them are made with an intention for a political gain, and others are made with what I could call lack of knowledge. For example, the one of lack of knowledge. I have seen, I think, on some recording where Gashomba says that Banyarwanda, remember Banyarwanda is a tribe in Uganda. I think they're number 14 in the schedule of indigenous communities. Okay, where you have actually what is listed in the constitution. So in the constitution of Uganda, Banyarwanda is a tribe. So even if we talk within our jurisdiction, when Gashumba says that Banyarwanda, God took more time to create them or to manufacture them, and therefore they are beautiful girls. Now, such statement is out of ignorance. We all know that we look the way we look because of mere environmental, biological factor. People who live on plain land, they are tall. People who live on mountains and hills, because of this bone, femur bone, getting hard in climbing, they are naturally short. All over the world, okay? Now, if you expose genetically over a period of time to animal content consumption, you definitely will develop apes or develop some part. So it is really environmental factor that make what we are, including, if you wanted to stress, what we call a dog and a cat face. That is a round face and a long jaw. People who eat milk and soft food have a long jawbone and therefore shapes your face. In fact, the original Bahima Banyarwanda who were only drinking milk had long jawbone and a long teeth, because there's nothing perfecting your teeth, okay? The milk. By the time Museveni came to power, about 60% of Bahima girls have gap. But over time, because of integration and dietary change, you'll now get very few Bahima with gap in the teeth, because the dental formula changes with the diet. Now, a statement made by Gashomba like that, in total ignorance, once you point a group, remember, genocide is identification of a gene and exterminating it. That's the definition of genocide. So some of this statement makes the ignorance, creates disharmony, and that is how it goes to the they and we. So we should be very careful about this, some of these statements. Either it is out of ignorance or otherwise, but it causes disharmony. So how I wish our members could understand the scientific conception of things so that they don't make hollow and stupid statement. And that is it. Now, about the statement in Luweero, first of all, I like to share that Luweero during the war was defined as Luweero Triangle. Luweero Triangle actually extended up to Mukono. It extended up to Mpiji, to Mitiana. It was a bigger area called Luweero Triangle, not the traditional Luweero district. Yes, there was Luweero district with a district commissioner then, but the triangle was bigger. So it was the area where there was theater of the war. I'm quite conversant about this because I've been NRA, you know it. I've been a baby NRA, I was a Kadogo. I know NRA very well. So this was the theater, and there was support. And now, true, when we came, he says we didn't have a second underpan. Me, I didn't have even one. I didn't even have one. Actually, the first underpan
Now
I got.
this is breaking news from NRA.
The first underpan I got, we were in State Lodge. State Lodge is that building next to Ministry of Agriculture. Down there's a zoo. If you step on it, you see the zoo down there. But you may not see it because Ministry of Agriculture covers it. Then there's golf that side. So that was my first camping site. And I got, I think, an underpan from there for the first time. But of course, many things have changed because we stayed 86, 87. The first salary we got was in 88, I think. And we were not even agitating. Actually, being young then, I didn't even know there was salary. Salary took us by surprise. And we properly misused it out of excitement. It lasted well. So it is true. But many things have come through. First of all, back to the Luweero Triangle. The famous 10-point program, if you remember. The famous 10-point program had a number for Luweero, restoration of war-ravaged areas. To this effect, Ministry of Luweero was created. And several interventions has been made. So whoever says nothing has been done in Luweero should really unpackage and say, right from the 10-point program, what are the interventions? Maybe the point that we could go and criticize is the usefulness and the effectiveness of these interventions. First, there was payment of property, which like cows or animals which were eaten. They were paid. Then there were interventions like in economic systems. This PDM and everything started later. But there were particular interventions. Lots of money was sunk in Luweero. It is maybe good to interrogate where those interventions went. So to say Luweero was forgotten is like wars were fought, things were done, everybody forgot about it. But there are several interventions which were made for Luweero with particular reference to one of the 10-point program. Okay? So we could have general challenges in the country as a whole. But of course, we have so many other things that I will not go into of the achievements. And maybe this is a time that I would take to thank Kyagulanyi, that at least he recognizes that many achievements were made. Did he say many or few? But he says achievements were made. So achievements were made. I thank him for that recognition, but he should also go deep and dig out how many interventions were made in Luweero since. If we were to interrogate why these interventions does not seem to generate the desired results as people would wish, would see it. But remember, this 37 years ago. So even people who got in 86, who benefited from intervention in 90, in 95, in 2000, those people benefited from it. Now new people come up and still say, we have not benefited. Still, it must be manifestly clear or seen that this is the intervention, but it has been there. So, she has dealt at length about statements that bring disharmony, statements that lead to genetic identification, and those are statements that lead to genocide. Not only does it on the Kyagulanyi statement, but even statements like that of Gashumba, devoid of any scientific sense of human development, devoid of any scientific sense of societal development.
Retired Major, and sorry to cut you short, but the Honorable Chagulanyi has gone to his official Twitter handle to make a response to those who are calling his statements tribal. And he has said that the NRM has been at the forefront of practicing sectarianism and tribalism. That look at, for example, the public service. And these were his arguments, where he pulled out, for example, the URA board.
Employment,
yes.
yeah.
And he said that guys, this is actually the reality on ground. And I am only being, overly, I don't know, how do you make of that?
So if it is about the practice of sectarianism, that becomes quite interpretative, because the attempt of government, first of all, has been the creation of Human Rights Commission is part of the attempt to stop sectarianism so that human rights are catered generally. But there's also Equal Opportunity Commission, which is an arm of government. An Equal Opportunity Commission has a lot of mandate. They're even supposed to check employment procedures and all that. So I don't know what to do. If the same government which creates Equal Opportunity Commission and mandates it to do its work is the one which is the sectarian, then I don't know. But there's also a legal provision which prohibits sectarian practices, which is an act of parliament. But all said and done, I think there was an attempt at one time by a member of parliament to table recruitment in a URA in parliament. Amazingly, it turned out that Baganda were a majority. It was tabled in parliament.
That's true.
It was tabled in parliament because the allegation then was that the member Nyankole in URA. It was tabled in parliament and it was proved that actually Baganda were. So if it's citing top members, or like he's citing my good old boyfriend, John Musinguzi, the hobby of Ontario School is my hobby, and whoever he cites, then I think it needs a proper institutional investigation. I have no problem with it. Like that attempt which was institutionally done by parliament. If it is proved that recruitment is unfair, do I sanction unfairness? But that attempt was made and it was proved to the contrary.
Okay, fair enough. And to me, I think what sums up your argument is, if I'm to borrow the words of Michelle Obama in her book Becoming, she says that merit, greed has capacity to overpower sectarianism or even racism. That for as long as you're good at what you're doing, irrespective of your tribe, where you come from, you will naturally be called up for. But I think fair enough. Let me come to you, Winnie. Winnie, if you're going to Mbara High School, you get to a point and there's a signpost to say that Mbara High School is 200 meters ahead. Yes, you are at the signpost, but you are not yet at the school. I want to use that adage to in the context of what the Honorable Chagulanyi mentioned, that he is pointing to perhaps a bigger problem that we are not looking at. That, guys, the actual truth is this country has no DNA. We are only pretending about it. And if you're to borrow the words of Council Mpanga, that, we don't feel each other's pain. If landslides happen in Bududa, it is a Bududa affair. When there was LRA in the north, it is an Anacholi issue. When floods happen in Kasese, it is their issue. So, was it pointing to a bigger problem that we are just trying to avoid?
Thank you so much. I think maybe we don't feel each other's pain because we are pain. We are real pain. And to me, when police comes out to react the way it reacted, I feel they need to first take some step back and think. First of all, we are all made up of different layers. Someone who is talking comes from some triggers. Chagulanyi's talk, Honorable Chagulanyi's talk, has things that are triggering his talk. Meaning that we need to also to respect that. Then also these ones who are reacting to the speech, in any way you're reacting, it means that speech triggered something within you. Either what Chagulanyi said triggered fear in you, anger, or even maybe to you, like he's speaking the truth and he's like, you're like, he's trying to point to me because you know you're the one doing it. It means that, you know, so everyone reacts differently to a speech. You get? From where Kyagulanyi stands, for him, he feels that is the speech he had to make. And I am really saddened by us only looking at the speech in Luweero. Kyagulanyi was in Mbarara. He talked about health. He talked about the problems of health. Did police come out and say that he's trying to incite violence? He was in Arua. He told the people of Arua, wake up. When you see the signal, wake up. Is police going to come out and say that he's trying to groom or bring together what? Terrorists? In Buganda, he came in Buganda. He talked about land. I believe also our president, or even everyone here, you have different spaces you address. But in the different spaces you're going to address, you organize your speech according to the people. Because you want to bring out a speech that is directed to the kind of audience you're going to speak to. And I believe Kyagulanyi expressed what he was feeling. When he went to Mbarara, he expressed that if I talk about health when I'm in Mbarara, I'll catch the audience in Mbarara. When I go to Arua and I talk about them coming up and fighting for the country, because maybe they're fighters, I'll capture their mind. When I come to Luweero and I talk about land issues, I only don't agree with him when he uses abusive language. Because as a leader, you don't have to use abusive language. But as I expecting Kyagulanyi to speak in a certain way, to talk about things in a certain way, that is wrong. Because even when we have seen different political leaders come up, even the president speak about things in his way. You get it? So you can't determine when you enter politics. Political parties are not football clubs. That when two clubs enter a pitch, there are rules and regulations, and they'll give you a penalty. These people are going out there in constituencies. So if police says that Kyagulanyi, because when you read the letter, they are saying, we told Kyagulanyi they have to hold their meetings in roofed spaces so that we can give them what? Security. When he did it in Mbarara, did they warn him? They didn't.
Because I think the difference, Winfred, is that in Luweero, he is calling for the removal of a democratically elected government. He
did it also in Arua. Why are we? My question is, even you can read the speech in Arua. He also did that.
I think it's because of how delicate the issue of land is in Buganda.
That is now. That is what I was saying. He organized his talk according to the space. The issue in Luweero is land.
That is why we are saying that perhaps it was a misplaced comment, because if you recall, the 1966 Buganda crisis was partly founded on the Luchiko resolution to ask the central government out of Buganda land. So if you're making statements such as Baveku Takariafe, aren't you taking, how different is that from the Luchiko resolution of 1966?
That is what I say, that political parties are not football clubs. This is Kyagulanyi's what? For him, he felt that if I go, remember, Kyagulanyi is looking for votes, right? What do you expect of him?
So are you telling us that we can put the rules aside and just go on and do whatever we have to do to
That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, first of all, let's first look at, personally, I'm looking at personally, I can't say that Kyagulanyi had to speak like this. Because I'm not Kyagulanyi. And that is why I'm saying, where he used abusive language.
You condemn.
As a leader who is leading a party, who even wants my vote. That is wrong of him. But him standing and saying that I'm going to tell the people, if I go to Luweero, if I talk about land, that is their wound. All leaders, they'll look for a wound. When they will come to women, they'll tell us things that will make us wake up. That is what Kyagulanyi did. He went to Luweero and said that, where can I touch for the Luweero people to feel me and clap their hands and cheer me up? That is what he was supposed to talk about, according to him. Yes? But again, when he says it is really wrong to divide, like how he was saying that them and we, it is wrong as wherever everyone is standing. Everything will be wrong according to where you're standing. According to Kyagulanyi and his party, to them they feel that is the reality to them. And I would think the reaction from police, from our side, from the government, would be like, okay, he's saying we've not done anything. Like how he has said that, let them refer. They would have just come out and then not even defend. Like you come out on your side and then talk about those. How you can beat your enemy is not about fighting. Someone says you haven't done something, come on and show what you've done. Someone says, and again also Kyagulanyi, when you talk about they have stolen our land, yes, maybe they've stolen the land, but can you give us proof that they've stolen the land? Because we have Baganda who are built in Barara. We have Baganda in Karamoja. We have in different areas, we have different tribes. You get it? Yeah. We need also Kyagulanyi needs to look at to find however much he's looking for votes, he has to look to have facts. Some decorum. Yes, he has to also have facts. But also as citizens, because I'm here as a citizen, we need to note these people are just playing on our heads. They're all looking for votes. Yeah. They're all looking. Everyone will go in that chair and they'll do the same, like how Charity said. You look at how Obote was going. People were like, now we've gotten Museveni. He's going to help us. We are removing the dictator. Now Kyagulanyi is here, is telling us we are removing the dictator. Yeah. Personally, I asked some people that, okay, Kyagulanyi has come to remove the dictator. Let's just track. Within the NUP, are we seeing Democrats? Are we seeing the democracy here there? He tells us. So also as citizens, let us not go with this wave. This is a wave. Politicians are like a wave. They only come to stabilize us. Thank you. Joseph, I want to come to you. Joseph, retired Major did give a hint about the 10 points program that the NRA had in the bush. And people have given them credit that this program had a national appeal. Talking about corruption, it is national in nature. Talking about democracy, talking about, rule of law. These were national appealing ideas. Do you think that NUP in their mobilization have put out a national message, or they are cocooning the country into small sections? Like she said, when you go to Bara, speak about something specific. Shouldn't politicians be speaking about issues of national interest and not subdividing the country into, okay, Baganda, your issues are land. Oh, actually, your issues are these.
First of all, I think I just want to say that political parties are actually like football teams. I get your context and I totally agree. But I think by and large, they're like football teams because they've got their own unique characters, they've got their own managers, they've got their own rules, internal. But of course, when they go to the field, they play by the rules. Now, if then the issue is about playing by the rule, then nationally, that's a question of leadership. And I think I hinted on that at the beginning of the program. So when we begin to have a national debate about the economy, indeed the health provisions, health services, where's NUP, where's ANT, where's NRA and their crooked record that you're trying to refer to, that somebody's trying to praise, that is really great. The 10-point program, indeed, granted, they came with a group of ideas. But, we go to Luweero, as Comrade Awich seemingly suggested earlier, we'll go through the tick list and I can tell you, they'll score less than 30%. But the point is this, that
but they've sunk too much money.
A political party, if they sink too much money, and the too much money is not showing anything, then it's almost criminal. And they need to be investigated. And like I know Awich has come from China, then you know, such a regime, if it was in China, they would be deposed, perhaps they would be in Luweero. Worst, some of the thieves would be hanged. You know, but political leaders' jobs for various political parties to provide holistic leadership, one. And political parties and organizations ideally need to be able to do that. And political leaders of serious political organizations that believe that they've got capacity or likelihood of attaining power should have the leadership and the vision which is nationalist enough to know that they will be leading at some stage, and they need to show evidence that they've got capacity to govern the entirety of the country. They've got the capacity and the commitment to govern on behalf of everybody else, including the opponents, and that is where NRA got it so wrong. I just want to go back very briefly to some of the things that had been said much earlier. I am not yet substantially convinced that Chagulanyi's statement was crudely so much out of space that we should be giving it this much attention, number one. And number two, I'm not quite sure whether it is so bad that necessarily NRA police needed to have intervened onto it. I think if NRA were wise as a regime and as a political organization, they ought to have allowed this to be discussed around the media and television stations like this, and perhaps newspaper articles and columns, so that Ugandans themselves make their own informed decision. To me, politically, that would be the best. In other words, you put Chagulanyi and his statement and his politics on the spot, you know, in a manner in which Charity, as she hinted at the beginning, is able to critique and simply say, I think I had a leaning towards the NUP since I've been UPC, but I'm not quite sure that when it comes to this sort of they cross the line, I need to review my position. That a political response. The reason I say that is this, that unfortunately, one, I'm UPC. Unfortunately, for NRA, in this context, I'm a victim and I'm old enough, Winfred. NRA came and ran a very bad campaign leading to Luweero, the politics of them versus us, Charity. In fact, even before Luweero, Museveni's narrative around for NASA stroke then UPM was about political parties and organizations of DP being Catholic Buganda and UPC being Protestant Northeast, both of which by and large were simplistically not true, but very inciting. And then coming to Luweero, the ground of NRM, this official, the grounding of NRM mobilizing people in Luweero, Baganda in Luweero, was let's get rid of this Oyo Mucholi, these guys, the Northerners who've been in charge and control. In other words, they've been your national problem. So for NRA to fault Chagulanyi, particularly in Luweero, is not only simplistic, but it's a conversation that, well, I cannot wait to have as a debate with Mr. Museveni. Unfortunately, in NRA conversations, they normally bring some of these people, the Kashumbas, whatever. So it's an important conversation we need to have, because the NRA guys ran with the them versus us. In fact, so bad that ironically, it's no surprise that Baganda are angry. I'm not justifying the Chagulanyi element. That look, we've been promised that we'll get rid of these other ones, and there are problems. And now, once things go, we shall have our skyscrapers in Luweero. We shall have, the Luweero Nakaseke Hospital that UPC built will now be bigger than Mulago times 3, including Loboa equivalent. And now part of Luweero is just like a slum, like Nagongara would simply say, now, why you guys did you have to give your matoke once in a while? Some of them were literally stolen. So that's true. Number 3, I have got a statement from a Charlie Gonza, meaning the official NRA position, who went ahead and called non-NRA people biological substances. Biological substances. I pick a piece here. Charlie Gonza made the statement to the so-called NRA set-up Human Rights Commission. And he was very emphatic about it. And there is a conversation here that I'm told later, clarifying the assertion in 1999 in an interview with the New Vision newspaper. Yeah? They said, the people we fought against were mere biological substances. Granted, they qualified that they were kidnapping, looting, and killing innocent people. No, the people they fought, remember the original narrative were Northerners and Easterners. And I find it, where was me, Ochieno, from Nagongro, Tororo? Where was I? In which case, I was then going ahead and qualified as a biological substance. So NRA does not have the moral basis or stand or ground to challenge and claim the alleged decency of being anti-tribalism. You know? Number 3, read Milton Obote's note on concealment of genocide in Uganda. Obote, as early as 1991, of course, many Baganda still thought that, well, Museveni was right. As 5 years later, they themselves rejected their own Semogere in court, to Obote because the ghost Obote was going to be returned. But Obote says they claimed the revolution. Granted, my brother here has got experience about some of these things. As of 1991, look at the officers, the senior officers beyond major, who were Baganda. And I think was it 1 or 2. In fact, fast forward to about 10 years ago, there's a report, but it's a fact, where it was suggested and reported, of course, took evidence, that of the then top 5 only generals were without prejudice. Museveni and a few others, the Tinyefunzas and Tumines, Bahima. This is on record somewhere. This is what I'm saying. Fast forward to today is neither here nor there. Museveni's own family has got 3 generals, top generals. Now, when we put all these other things in the conversation, we talk about URA and things like that, the police and the officers, and Comrade Awich does a very good job for NRM. The good thing with him is he defends it as well as he possibly can, and many of them are completely in error, but he does it with decorum, and of course the lawyer that he is. But by and large, many of these things are neither here nor there. NRA is as illegitimate as the attempt they are trying to make against Kyagulanyi on the question of tribalism. That said, though, any leader, as I said at the beginning, any leader in Uganda of any major political party in this country at this material time should work extremely hard. So just to reemphasize, I believe that politics of tribalism across all the political divide, the political organization with the worst record is NRA. And it's the one with the least moral base or basis to teach Ugandans. However, as the leaders, Uganda People's Congress, I completely believe that going forward, post where we are today, all political leaders and political organizations should work towards reclaiming the nation, healing the nation, and persuading young Ugandans towards a nation in which we're able to live together in harmony and in diversity.
Just out of curiosity, could you just mention for us the history of the UPC leadership? I mean, the presidents from Obote, then after, who came after Obote, then up to date.
What's the relevance to this?
No, just tell us.
I don't understand. What's the relevance?
All I'm asking is that could you tell our audience, because you've cited out the NRM as having the worst record. So I'm just
on tribalism.
I am interested in looking at what the UPC looks like.
On tribalism
I've asked a simple question. How many presidents has UPC had, and who are these presidents?
UPC as a party.
As a political party.
Ignatius Musazi, our founding president.
That is UNC.
Yes, but we are together and it's officially connected. That our official founding political organization, the Uganda National Congress.
No, it's okay, huh? Okay, from Obote, then after
Milton Obote.
Then Obote.
Mire Kalule Obote.
Then Obote.
Pollar Tunu. And as of now, Obote. It's in contest. But in between that, you shouldn't have answered it for me. In between that, we had James Ranyarari and Cecilia Ogwal as our interim leaders in the country, while NRA had banned the political party.
Okay, fair enough.
But I don't see the relevance of that, and because part of the risks, and this is part of the risks, is making this simplistic by rubbing a bit on UPC to cleanse the mess, the emphatic mess I've made about NRA, and I did so deliberately. Link that with Kyagulanyi report. In fact, I need to say this. Part of what Kyagulanyi was talking about was the them versus us, which my sister here took exception. And as I said, it's very important. But it also needs to be put in context. We also had an early conversation about whether this is about Ugandan or non-Ugandan. Winnie, NRA in Luweero included non-Ugandans. NRA included Paul Kagame. NRA in Luweero, including, meaning refugees from refugee camps, pulled from refugee camps to come to Luweero to fight against Ugandans. So these are conversations that have been had. So point is, we need to have this conversation in the manner in which we're healing and harmonizing. I have told people that my Rwandese friends, meaning Rwanda, the other Rwanda, who were part of these conversations, we need to be able to discuss and help them justify the involvement in NRM. Simply said that, well, we're refugees in Uganda, but we decided to get an opportunity to join these other guys, join Museveni, to build a base in Luweero with Museveni so that we were to fight back, rather than saying we are refugees in Uganda and then we're being mistreated and then that's why we had to go back. Because I've always argued on that, and I know there's the lawyers here have always argued that's not true, because UPC built the foundation, legal foundations on which the Banyarwanda were secured in this country, including Obote taking a very strong position with the British government at the time, who did not want the Banyarwanda refugees during the 1969-59 revolution, genocide in Rwanda to come to Uganda. And Obote said, no, these are our people. I have come to link that in the finality. If in 1959 UPC leaders were saying Banyarwanda were our people, we are saying that we are able to live together in diversity, but respecting laws, institutions, and structures and systems. And so the Banyarwanda refugees in refugee camps, and I'm a refugee scholar, by the way, were wrong to have left refugee camps to go and find a democratic elected government. Talking about democratic elected government, NRA was not democratic elected government. Is not. I know the legal finesse with this will come from Awich. Lest you forget, NRA together with UNLA over the last democratic elected government. The last democratic elected government here was Milton Obote's government of 1980.
Then perhaps that's where I would invite us to maybe recall the Hans Kelsen theory that for as long as a coup has popular support,
which coup had popular support?
For as long as there is popular support of a revolution, it can topple a regime and establish a new order, and it is accepted. It is acknowledged.
For a law graduate like you to call Luweero 1980
for as long as
Luweero revolution, I'm not sure.
For as long as there's popular people support, the law under the Hans Kelsen theory legitimatizes coups. But
interestingly, because I can't let you go with this.
I don't hear your point.
Fair enough. No, fair enough. No, I can't let you go. Fair enough. Fair enough, UNLA, fair enough, Luweero, NRA, Museveni was popular in Luweero. That's absolutely true. But Luweero is not Uganda. You see what I'm saying? And the suggestion that NRA war, Museveni was popular in 1985 with Okellos is a nonsense. It was not true. Granted, again, Museveni was quite popular in Kampala in 1986 because that's important for Ugandans. Museveni was quite welcomed in Kampala in 1986, and I was around. But Museveni was not popular in Uganda because Kampala is not the Republic of Uganda. These are the broader contexts now. The more we have these conversations fairly and objectively, the more likely we shall have the Uganda that UPC fought so hard to rebuild so that we're able to have a nation diversity. Because when we are discussing Uganda, it must include Karamoja. When we're discussing Uganda, it must include West Nile. That NRA has failed to connect to the grid after 37 years. Shambolic history.
Fair enough. Clearly today, Joseph has brought his A game. But Charity, I want to invite you, because Joseph introduces very deep context here. And I want to invite you to make comments if you have any, but also speak to the legal aspect regarding the Honorable Chagulanyi's statements. Some have characterized it as hate speech. And does that statement meet the ingredients of hate speech as per the Computer Misuse Act? But also, how do you reconcile that with the decision in Charles Onyangobo and Menda? So, the legality, does it fall in the category of hate speech, and therefore it could be subject for prosecution? But also your comments regarding here.
So I feel if I start with my comments on what Joseph has made, I might lose the legalistic discussion around Andrew Mwenda and Charles Onyangobo. Now, in that case of Andrew Mwenda, the whole issue was the freedom of the press, speech,
freedom to speak,
and
sedition.
Yes. Now, the context was Andrew had gone on the radio station and said the death of Garang had been caused by the Ugandan government. And he was held for a seditious statement. Now, of course, when the courts ruled eventually, they said no, it was within his context as a journalist to say what he said within the radio station. So that's the context. But before I come back to the legalese of that case, let me first deal with Joseph and from a very historical perspective. I do agree that the Obote government was a democratically elected government, and the junta overthrew a democratically elected government. And I think even President Museveni has not run away from it, because in his recent speech about ADF, he told us he was a rebel himself and he knows how rebels behave. But when they took over government in 1986, a number of processes went fast forward until 1995, when the 1995 Constitution was promulgated. Any decent society cannot run without a constitution. Now, once you have a constitution, once you have a creed on which you're running, then you ask yourself, have we followed what we have put in the Constitution? And that 1995 Constitution therefore asked us to hold elections every after 5 years, which the NRM government and President Museveni get credit for. Elections have been held every 5 years. We can talk about the quality of elections, but have they been held? Yes, they have. Then also, I want to remind Ugandans, because Joseph, you said, let's talk about these things and let us be honest as we can be. In 1996, when President Museveni stood to be president, he walked around the whole of Uganda. His vote, which, by the way, the Electoral Commission chairperson that time must have been Akabwai. And Stephen Akabwai is respected up to now to have been one of the only most objective Electoral Commission chairpersons that we had. He did not influence processes for the sake of just making the president happy. But he managed processes to help the country come to a conclusion of who their president was. The president won that election landslide, hands down, for everybody who was in that election. Akabwai was in the seat. Ask him. Go and sit with Akabwai. He's still alive. Go and ask him what happened in 1996. How many votes were stolen? How much ballot stuffing was there? What this happened? So the election was not 100% clean, and he knows that. But he also knows he put in place a system which was highly respected and acceptable to most of the Ugandans. That is 1996. Now we leave 1996 and we move to the next election. And that is the one that reintroduces us into the multi-party dispensation.
No, the one after that.
2006.
Oh,
10 years
2006.
later.
We came in 2001 with the multi-party dispensation. So 2006, we again get another election where the president again wins with popular support from across the country. And he is not a junta this time, please, Joseph. He's not a junta. This time he's democratically elected. And his first democratically elected presidential term was in 1996 after the promulgation of the 1995 Constitution. And so we should never forget those legal aspects. They happen for a purpose. And that is one of the reasons that inspired me to go back to see what do these lawyers are always talking about. Because from a journalistic point of view, I was moved to more of thinking about transformation of society, fairness and justice and balance without seeing the legal angle to the issue. But why is the legal angle necessary? Is because a society, any modern society, any democratic society, which you know, cannot run without principles, without a constitution,
And that's
without
why
laws.
I strongly objected to the idea that 1995 elections, which was held 1996 for constitution, 1996 elections, which were held with political parties tied at the back, and that we praised that it was an a democratic election. It was not. And let me just say in 30 seconds. And that was 10 years after NRA came by force. break political parties, imprison some of their leaders. Many of them get killed. 10 years later, they say, okay, here's election, we're going to have it our way.
But the Constituent Assembly had a representation.
Two members.
It had a representation.
Two seats from political
people
parties.
From political parties.
Indeed. Two
so
seats.
Because they were there, they should have said, we don't need to be part of this.
How can 2 people versus 10 soldiers?
Yes, but they were there in the Constituent Assembly.
Okay, no, since we're telling citizens, and this is a live program.
Yes.
2 seats for political parties, 10 for soldiers, and the rest for NRA followers, whatever which they came.
It was the movement.
No, but indeed, and you guys are lawyers, but maybe it's neither here nor there. No, on the basis of that, as Uganda People's Congress leader, okay, and as a politician, and as a global citizen, I have my right to say I do not recognize that. And we don't recognize it. And as a matter of, no, because it was an imposition. No different from Idi Amin. But anyway, you guys, let's move forward and see how, after 1996 glorious, quote, Museveni elections, we are doing on human rights and democracy and the glorious things in Luweero.
Exactly. Now, Joseph, I thought that you digressed the country. You digressed the country when you seemingly only want to dwell on the fact that it was an illegitimate government.
I still hold that.
I think that is misrepresentation for the people, and the Ugandan citizenry needs to appreciate the fact that you might not like the NRM. I'm not an NRM supporter. I am not. I am not because I do not belong to any political dispensation.
You better come to UPC soon.
I'm non-partisan. Now, I look at things more from a political dispensation angle and the Ugandan perspective. I'm more of a citizen than one who belongs to a political party.
Politically, you NRA, on the basis of what I say,
now,
is a related.
When I look at the NRM, there are certain things I'll see about them which I don't agree with them, and he knows it. Because for him, he belongs to political parties.
Okay.
He has
NRA. And sometimes I wonder, but anyway, you go.
He has a political party, and I always criticize some of the things that they do. But I criticize from a very objective angle, and I don't want any Ugandan to think that we have an illegitimate government. If we do, then that means we don't have a constitution, then that means we don't have any legality, which I disagree with 100%. We have a constitution that was built after consulting all Ugandans. I still believe in that constitution, even if it has been changed, transformed, dropped, done what, we can still work with the document
that constitution was made with political parties and political leaders hands behind.
That's
and
it. So is Chagulanyi's statement.
So the problem is they allowed, at least let's accept that they are allowed to be involved. They could have said we can't be part of this. You get? If they accepted to have their hands at the back,
yes,
and be in the room, you can walk out of the room.
I am the politician here.
I am
trying to say that I don't know which country in the world in which constitutions are made without political parties being actively at the forefront. And the situation in which you have political party slots versus 10 for soldiers is an insult for those citizens. Young Ugandans, make your choices.
It is. I agree with you. But again, my point is, I agree with what you're saying, because that is a little number, only 2. But again, them being in the room is also a problem. They wouldn't even have accepted.
There was actually one. We never took our seat.
But there was actually a nationwide consultation.
Exactly,
right?
the Constituent Assembly was
moved around the country.
But let's leave Joseph with his political ideology, which we need to unpack on another day.
Yes.
Today,
which is completely anti the mess in which we are discussing.
Today, let's talk about whether this can amount to hate speech.
Yeah.
In the context of...
Indeed. And why I'm insisting on that, we are discussing Luweero.
Yes.
Luweero foundation that Chagulanyi is talking about was a foundation built on brutality by the NRM, starting in February 1981. So people were coerced into these things, including people who thought they're being liberated. And we shouldn't duck some of these issues. And those things that they were fudged in 1989, NRC will bring people together, build, we now have inspector of government, they're going to inspect now which government is being inspected. In 1996, we are government, people's people, elections is taking place, and Mr. Museveni, the general, is now in charge. I'm simply saying that you say we should talk about background. Those are the backgrounds that
You're
Ugandans
giving
need to
Ochieno
know.
too
And
much
it's part
time.
of that
You're
background
not being fair.
that we have the mess in which we have, that Chagulanyi goes to a very disgruntled, misled Luweero, disgruntled, misled Luweero, and here he tries to bring some of the issues out, and NRA responds, hate speech.
Okay. So,
So
as
if
we
we went into
let's-
court
yeah.
and it was a whole court process, I don't think this would pass for hate speech.
not pass.
Because after the analysis by court, they're going to contextualize whether this was a political statement made in a political rally within a political context and a politically charged atmosphere. Because hate speech, like you know, has standards, and its standards will be weighed against the freedom of speech, opinion, and assembly.
All right.
And you say it's actually addressing his base, which
we
is
are,
Luweero. Yeah.
we are due for a short commercial break. Retired Major, I'll give you sufficient time to, of course, make your responses. But for now, let's take a short commercial break and see you after this.
The Citizens Chatroom happens every Friday at 2 p.m. on Civic Space TV Online on Facebook and YouTube. We invite you to be part of this conversation. Civic Space TV, freedom always.
We'll be back from that short commercial break. So as we continue with this, I'll just read for you the ingredients under Section 26A of the Computer Misuse Act that one should meet for them to fall within the realms of hate speech. And it says, a person shall not write, send, or share any information through a computer which is likely to ridicule, degrade, or demean another person, group of persons, a tribe, an ethnicity, a religion, or gender. B is that create division among people, tribe, ethnicity, blah, blah, blah. Then 3 is promote hostility against a person or group of persons, a tribe, ethnicity. So, do the statements of the Honorable Chagulanyi promote hostility against a group of people? Retired Major, I'll give you a chance to make your comments from the legal perspective, but also just to respond to what Joseph has been saying earlier.
Not what we've been saying, not me only. But I'm fine to deal with it.
I think she mentioned enough about the legalities. First of all, I'm one person who believes that laws are not interpreted outside court, unless you want my views. So that would be idle and redundant. But I wonder why you are quoting a provision from the computer misuse.
Yeah, it's also true.
Computer misuse? I think there should be other.
That is where hate speech is defined.
No, I doubt there should be other provisions.
In the Electoral Commissions Act, it's there. It is defined. Hate speech is defined.
Speech is defined.
Yes.
So the one on the computer use is
standards.
when you have used the computer.
Yes.
When you have used a computer. So, but I think even if not, we would still, the law would still revert to
the same standards.
No, the text of definition.
Yes.
I mean, the Interpretation Act.
Sure.
You'd still go back to Interpretation Act. But that is subject of court because laws are not interpreted outside court. But I want to comment about what she says. She seems to suggest that Arsenal, Man U playing, there's a referee, there are rules. In Uganda, NUP, UPC, NRM, there are no rules.
That's not what I said. What I said is, when it's like when you're on a pitch, there are rules. Yes, I believe that every political party, even in the political parties have rules. But when political parties go out to speak, you don't have to put you don't have to say that President Museveni, this is how you have to speak. Chagulanyi, you're going to this place. This is how you're supposed to speak.
In that case, then I wonder why the import of rules itself. Then the importation of rules again for the football, and this was idle and redundant. You could have explained, because you implied like there's no rule. If I were you, would have addressed that minus whether or not there's rules. But I like to emphasize here that in political activity, there's no vacuum. The rules are even much stricter than the football. Starting from the grand norms, the Constitution. Once the Constitution provides political system, it goes ahead to say Parliament shall make laws to govern political activities or political laws. When you do that, you're actually talking of two separate things. The viewers out there, and that's what I'm trying to struggle with the attention of the viewers, that they should not misunderstand your statement to mean there are no rules.
She's contextualized
Okay?
it.
Yeah, I think
So,
we need to context.
but you have right from the Constitution, it's like those of us who are in the theater of it, we have a whole set of books, a compendium of laws governing political activities, including electoral laws, including that do's and do nots. There's so many do's and do nots prescribed under the political activities. So it's not a vacuum. Otherwise, if we were not to have laws and rules, it would be total anarchy. It even prescribes where you are supposed to get funding and not get funding. So much as you're saying about freedom of speech, as you say, but we should not make audience misbelieve or believe that there are no rules and laws in political activities. There are even stricter rules.
I think to be fair, I think one of the things that maybe we need to talk about is, one, maybe political ideology, maybe just how we present it. One, from ideology, and then two, different styles and groupings, and then form and substance.
Yeah, for example,
don't misquote me.
Yeah, yeah.
I said, I never say there are no rules in politics. My
when you mention football game,
football
teams, what were you saying?
It.
What were you
saying?
Football teams.
I am rephrasing. Can you listen? I said, when political parties go out, let's don't take it like football clubs have gone to the pitch. You get it? When football clubs are on the pitch, leave alone all the other rules. You're telling me about the Constitution. You're saying they're all there. But when they're at the pitch, it's like now the football clubs are on the pitch. Kyagulanyi and Museveni are in the constituencies. You get it? And that is the example I use. I said let's not say that these are football clubs that have gone to the pitch. When political leaders, in fact I use when political leaders have gone out in the constituencies, rules and regulations and policies are there. I know that. But when they go, and they are meant to be followed. But
Fine,
again, like how one on the pitch.
That's all I wanted. I wanted to be sure that there are rules and laws to be followed.
Those ones
There's no
But the styles will be different.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, the styles are different, yeah.
Now, there's so many comments that I want to also comment, one or two. I think that a point left half developed may lead to a misconception. Kyagulanyi's statement about NRA coming with not a second underpant, which I considered too and said actually some of us had no underpant, is that you have 37 years. Some of us had to go back to classroom, to primary school, to secondary school, to university law school, and even working in the United Nations. So I do not see how within 37 years somebody cannot buy a second underpant, especially when you legitimately get it. When I legitimately went to Tare School and went to Makere, and so what is wrong with that? So the generalization is, I think, out of context. But 37 years is such a long time that even with dear salary, we could still buy a second underpant. Yeah. So I wonder why the allegation about that. So some of us got, I have not gotten a land in Buganda except for Arkwright Estate.
Even if you did.
And I did it legitimately.
Even if you did, for as long as you procured it legitimately,
and I think many more legitimately earning, and I have legitimately gone. Comrade Ochieno seems to say NRM has been based on nationalistic, on tribal and sectarian sentiments. I really totally disagree with you. You see, there was a guy called Major Ndoga Uria Maza. He wrote a book called Museveni's Long March. It was a Madi, but one of the earliest northerners in NRM. Now, Ndoga, he was such a genius, and he had been a political commissioner most of the time in the bush. Ndoga knew almost every commander. We would be in a Kololo Athena club, which was officers' mess. And he would pick every commander one by one. What took you to the bush? Your wife was taken by UNLA, you ran to the bush. You actually stole a car, you ran to the bush. You came because you wanted to kill northerners. Now, many commanders came with other motives, many soldiers. But I can assure you, the motive of Museveni, the nationalistic outlook, crystallized all these people and became very clear cadres right from the beginning. The concepts, the songs, one time he was saying there was one wrong song, but everything at that stage was nationalistic. So I do not subscribe to the thinking that NRM has been sectarian. In fact, even those who went with other motives were cooked into cadres, and they are there. I also like to correct you on the question of biological substance. I have seen this thing happen physically. You quote Cherigonza. I guess you mean General Cherigonza. That is not Cherigonza. Cherigonza is not the author of biological substance. The author was Kajabago Karusoke. Karusoke, we were in that state lodge I told you. Karusoke was called to come and appear in Justice Uder's Human Rights Commission of Inquiry. Karusoke was a labor officer in Jinja. When he was a labor officer in Jinja, he was arrested for supporting the rebels. So their commission asked him, why were you arrested? He said, I was arrested for supporting the rebels. They said, why were you supporting a rebel against a legitimate government? He said, because the government was anti-people. Then they asked him, who are the people? That is when he went into biological substance. Others are people, others are biological substance. That was Kajabagu Karusoke. And if you followed Kajabagu up to his death, that was his kind of, he was a man who believed in dialectical materialism, historical materialism, political. He was a graduate from Moscow State University. So that was his argument, but not Cherigonza. So it was from that context, and it was a Kajabagu. And I don't think it was a movement thing.
And thank you very much.
It was his view.
Thank you for corrections.
Can you do it after this?
But thank you for corrections.
Joseph?
Does that make that particular statement legitimate? Because if anything, it's possibly broadly national crisis. Yes.
I'm saying this was, if you knew a person of Kajubagu Karusoke, that was his kind of speech.
You see, me, I don't know.
Okay?
So me, I don't know.
You didn't know him.
So that's part of the
You
process. So me, I
didn't
don't know
know him.
Chagulanyi. That's my
So
point I'm trying to
you
make.
didn't know him, but that
So
was
we cannot
not.
pick and choose individuals
So
at the stage.
you are not going to say whoever made an utterance somewhere is a position of the movement or a definition. It is not in the 10-point program. It is not in any policy position. So why would you equate Kajabagu Karusoke?
Was he prosecuted? Was he prosecuted
So it
for
could be
that?
personal opinion.
No, it cannot be.
Now,
he was officially there. He was
about the
officially
legitimacy,
was he
about the
prosecuted?
legitimacy, Ochieno still talks about the legitimacy of NRM. As he correctly put, Ochieno doesn't even seem to think there was a government between NRM and his UPC government.
No, because they won.
There was a government, a legitimate government between NRM and your government. That is a government aided by Tito Kello.
No.
Now you jumped on us and call us a junta. Legitimacy, we don't need to go through it. You created you cited the consent theory.
Yes.
But the political system, be as it is, the constitution, we have repeatedly gone through elections.
Yeah.
If you had the query, you had the option of going to Supreme Court, which you didn't. But for now, as it stands, there's a legitimate government which shouldn't worry you.
Yes.
Now, this now takes me to constitutional processes. You said there were two positions for the parties, but we all know the actors who were there. The Cecilia Ogwal, the Ben Watcher, the Adahonekio, the Semogerer, everybody was there. So I don't know how you're going to separate the persons of these people who were in the CA, and they made very good contribution, and you turned around and said you are not there. Be as it is, everybody believes that the process, it is started by NRC and acting
is
law.
being dishonest with these submissions.
So the process of creating
You say
CA,
that and then I'll have a right to
remember the Odoki
I'll have
Commission.
to respond.
The Odoki Commission went through consulting views. But even in the substance of discussing itself, in Serena, remember CA was discussed in Serena. That was the parliament. Okay? With the Cecilia Gwal, with everybody, was Ken Adoko and everybody, all of them. So that is the constitutional making.
Not a Canada.
Adokunekion, yeah, not a Canada, Adokunekion.
You see?
So, unfortunately, all these responses took a lot of my time. So your specific question, yeah, because you are so painful. Your question was?
My question was actually
answered.
the legal perspective of whether...
Which I had already
It would
said
be
that I
which
was
you
not.
did.
Which
Yeah.
I said I was not.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so basically, my question would be that the police now intervening and putting to halt the NUP nationwide mobilization. Do you think this could be misread by the population as you know, trying to stop what appears to many as sort of a strong drive towards having people resonate with the NUP ideology and beliefs?
you see, the police is in the wider context of national security.
Yeah.
And it has its mandate, but there's also Article 219, which creates the National Security Council, the highest organ of the security. So police position are always taken from the security position. I believe that they must have synthesized and seen the security implication of this matter. Now, as to whether people will interpret, of course, the word interpretation is subjective and circumstantial. I would have my view. For example, I could have said, why did you let the honorable go ahead?
Yes.
And then arresting him could make more news,
Yeah.
or stopping it would make more news. Like for some of us who deal with foreign relations, we may have to go a lot of explanation to the outside world.
That's correct.
I'm
yes.
going to America next week, and I'll be in Canada. I'll be in 2 countries rapid talking to government officials. So I may need to do a lot of explanation. So vis-a-vis opinion which would say, no, as security, we have assessed and we have found harmful effect. So it's now security position from the angle of police vis-a-vis the liberal thinking.
Yeah.
And now I wouldn't venture into the research of police and why they came into this position. But I believe they came in good faith and assessing the implication that it would cause in security network. Actually, I need to interest myself and find out the detail because, as I said, it falls within my mandate because immediately you stop that, then they run outside. And therefore, going out, you're meeting any congressman in America, that is the first thing they'll tell you.
You'll ask, yeah.
You're meeting a select committee of parliament, like we have recently been in Denmark. We met a committee on foreign affairs in the Denmark parliament. That is what comes up. I was in German. So these are the things we keep explaining. So I need to know, but I have no doubt in the capacity of the police to make the assessment. But I have to find out and see it. But it is now, if you talk of interpretation, it is subjective, relative, and circumstantial.
It depends on...
And everybody will have his own view.
That's right. It depends on who. Well, I would love us to put this to bed and shift gears to the crisis in the Forum for Democratic Change. But I'll give Winfred maybe 2 minutes to just make your final comments regarding the controversial Chagulanyi address, but also introduce us into the second phase of this conversation, which is the crisis in the FDC. Is that you have one group, saying that they are calling the legitimate, extraordinary delegates conference scheduled for the 19th, and that is the Honorable Bidegwa group. Then you have the Nandala who are saying that is illegitimate. So just your comments, your final comments about the Chagulanyi speech, but also your views regarding what is happening in the FDC.
Just to conclude on the Chagulanyi saga, as a citizen, I'll be like, the question remains, how as citizens, where does it leave us, either his supporters or even us who are watching, where does it leave us with our freedom of association and even freedom of expression for him? Where does he live? Where does all this leave him and the supporters? You get it? Because by stopping him, they're violating his rights around there. And his supporters.
The police is saying that, yes, as a citizen, you have rights which are guaranteed by the Constitution. But if in the enjoyment of these rights, you begin to infringe on the rights of others, then the police has every right to...
How many times?
Has every right to
How many times?
You.
That is the question I asked when I was explaining the match. How many times have they mentioned Chagulanyi's name or any other person's name. Is it Chagulanyi the first person who has mentioned, even Chagulanyi only said them and where? We have had very many political leaders mention names. Yes? You get it? So for me, I'm like, where does police leave this? To me, this is a discussion that I think police has even given Chagulanyi a mileage. They have put him there, up there, because now everyone is looking for that article. Everyone is looking for the speech. They are the one promoting him.
And then when they find the speech, then they see
everyone
how sectarian he is. So how is that giving him mileage?
First of all, by giving him mileage, by looking for that. Personally, if I had not had that, by looking for that, everyone picks interest differently. Yes. When you get exposed to something, you pick interest differently.
But
again, Chagulanyi, now whether it is wrong or right, he's going to find ways of, like now he's treating. He has said that he's going to run outside. He has something to say that now police is what? Is violating my rights. And it's the truth. Chagulanyi is not the first person to make such statements. We have had our president make statements against other leaders. That can be somehow someone standing on this side might say that the president is being...
Just to back that a bit. Actually, very interesting. There's something doing the rounds, which is very interesting. From a political strategy point of view, I think if it was Comrade Awich, he would almost handle it different, but I'm not putting words in your mouth. Todwong, who's now the NRM Secretary General, yeah? There's a video of him doing the rounds and talking identities, and almost certainly people are saying that, well, if what the speech of what Todwong is saying in the clip is not tribalistic.
Paraphrase it.
No, Todwong said that what is haunting this country is corruption, nepotism, and something else.
Tribalism, and talks about identities. I mentioned identities. As I said, but anyway, point is, it's doing the rounds, and people are saying if Todwong said it and we are quiet, and Chagulanyi is whatever Chagulanyi is saying, we are actually struggling to interpret it. Whether
I think it's different.
Anyway, neither here.
I think it's different. I think what the Right Honorable Todwong said was that he was telling us some of the challenges that we have in the country, which is corruption, tribalism. In this context, Chagulanyi is trying to incite and is trying to mobilize people.
Police is saying Chagulanyi is trying to mobilize people and incite violence. I believe there is at one point one of the state actors mentioned how they have guns. We have the guns. Isn't that inciting violence?
We have the magic.
That is why I'm saying that it depends where you're standing.
If it's a state actor, yeah, it's right to have guns.
But how are you saying it out? People. And where are you saying it out? Where are you uttering it out from? We are talking about inciting violence. It is okay to have your guns. It is okay to say it when you're with your. But again, you tell citizens that we have guns. Aren't you inciting violence? That is why I'm saying
maybe
it depends where you're
state actor. The state means the army, the police, the intelligence. That is the state. Did you hear from a police officer, from the army? Or?
I am not going to go there. But it depends.
Or you heard from a politician, the one you are calling a state actor.
It depends from a state actor. It depends where you're standing. Inciting violence, everyone, Chagulanyi's supporters will be saying that he wasn't inciting violence. He was speaking out the truth. To some extent, let's ask ourselves, is there land that is being stolen? Is there land? Have we seen cases of land being stolen?
No.
Just asking. No, I don't need answers, but I'm saying those are questions. I am not, I don't need,
just legally. Legally, you can't steal land, can you?
Can I first finish?
Theft means a movable property.
Can I first finish?
Theft, by definition of the law.
Okay, I'm sorry, let me change
it.
Applicable. Let me change it. Let me change it.
Yeah.
I am really sorry using stealing the land.
Yeah.
Are there, if Chagulanyi used stealing, have we heard of stories of land grabbing? We have had
even displacement of people.
Yes, people are being displaced.
Legitimately.
You get it? We have had Chagulanyi speaking things. That is why when he went to Luweero, he said, which wound can I touch? and he touched the right wound. And police fell into the what he wanted. To me, I feel Kyagulanyi is making these rounds around to have attention. He prickles somewhere so that he gets attention from the government. And he gets it.
And he has got it.
And he has got it.
And that is how government has acted.
And what are they benefiting?
No, although I must say that from NRM mobilizers, they discounted Robert Kyagulanyi, and they said he didn't have the ability to mobilize people countrywide. And the shocker is that many years after the election, 2 years after the election, he's able to mobilize these people and very quickly, seamlessly, and they're young people. And they believe in him, and they're gathering, and they're listening, and he has crowds,
and they're spending their time,
and they're comparing with other crowds that are existing in other places.
Charity, just some context there is that about 3 months ago, there was a musician called Alien Skin who had a show at Freedom City. The number of Ugandans who flocked to the extent of even breaking the gate violently to go and see Alien Skin was enormous. So I think that politically speaking, we should distinguish between the motive of people who go there to see Bobi Wine,
the musician, and the politician.
Yeah, so
for me,
the numbers are not a yardstick for you.
Yes, numbers for
political.
Kidega, and I've not said that the numbers is the reason for winning votes or not winning votes. But I am saying he had been discounted by NRM practitioners, saying he's a non-starter. He's even just in Uganda. Here he can't mobilize people. Nobody listens to him. After all, what can he say? He even doesn't have a message. But this is a young man who has moved out. He went to Mbale and pulled a big crowd. And I'm not saying that he's pulling this crowd because he has a unique message and whatever, but anybody can pull a crowd if he has something unique about them. And that is what we had been talking about, the crowds, even which MK had pulled in, what is the speaker's place? Bukedi. He had a big crowd. And we are saying, Kyagulanyi, he had an advantage of he had been a presidential candidate. He's coming back and they're saying, okay, now go on mobilization. And I think government was also gauging to see, are people still interested? Do they want to hear or not hear? For me, actually, the bigger thing for anyone who needs to be objective now is to listen. What is not being said? What is in that void? Why is the audience reacting the way it is? What is it that we have not done to change these people to think the way we want them to think? What is it that we must do before the next election for them to understand this is it, this is it? But as long as the status quo remains as it is, Kyagulanyi remains a big mobilizer.
Retired Major, I want to pick it up from here, that I think also the NRM needs to look within itself. There are some issues that the population is grappling with that you must address, short of which the people become gullible to anyone, all right? So what are some of those issues that you think you must address for you to be able to consolidate your support? Is it issues of corruption? Is it land grabbing? Is it service delivery? Is it the healthcare? I don't know. What are like those 2-3 issues that you think you must address so that the population begins to really appreciate your message?
You see, in towards a week to Christmas in 2021, we had a SEC meeting in State House for about 5 days. We are staying in Lake Vic Hotel, and every morning we are being shuttled to State House. And I remember in that SEC meeting, the president presented one paper on strategies of mobilization. And it was very clear. He says, we are not going to mobilize by love NRM or NRM or NRM or He says you must mobilize by meeting the needs of the people.
That's true.
Programmatic areas. And that's why we lay emphasis on programs that we put in our manifesto and activated it in government programs. Because we sold our manifesto, we marketed our manifesto, and people voted us on that basis. And therefore, governments respective government departments were supposed to pick the manifesto because that's what the people voted for. Things like PDM, economic emancipation, poverty eradication, that is our area of enforcement. And that's why you rarely see, in fact, recently we had some mobilization in Kampala and Wakiso. And the president was telling Honorable Seninde, please don't go on NRM or love NRM. Ensure that we are making service provision in various aspects and various intervention. Now, that is our methodology, not the demagogy, not the rallies. We deliberately disassociate ourselves from demagogy, from rallies, from appeals, from emotions. And that's why we keep and watch. 2, it is true that there are issues that need to be addressed. Issues of corruption. We know that there's so many institutions put in place to combat it. We know that, and it is a struggle ongoing, including other new ones put in the office of the president to do this, to do that. So if you were asking for items that to be put in place, that is it. Okay. So it is economic empowerment, that is poverty eradication, fight against corruption. Among
the healthcare system, transport, I mean, all these things have to be addressed.
Infrastructure that we have dealt so much about. Even the congressman knows the roads are there.
Oh,
and
terrible roads. Don't go there.
So those are the issues, but we differ in methodology. I repeat with authority that recently when we attempted to mobilize in Kampala and Entebbe, and you could see that our method of mobilization was not the rally, it was not the appeal, it was not the demagogy, it was not the NRM oye. So we move in the people, sit and talk. And talking is to check service delivery. And that is the paper President Museveni presented in the SEC meeting, which we were in status for 5 days, because it was just we left status and basically broke for Christmas.
Fair enough, fair enough. Winnie, you still had your time, so I'll allow you to complete your point, but also I have seen print media trying to portray as if the stage is now set between Kyagulanyi and General Muhoozi. Do you also believe that the next general election will be between those two individuals, or you think it is just sort of euphoria for now that will die out, and the main players will occupy that space when that time comes?
I don't want to comment anything about politics around there because one, NRM hasn't yet come out. However much General Muhoozi says is coming for 2026, maybe it's a diversion. You get it? Until NRM comes out and says this is the person we are putting there, because right now there is the president of Uganda, Museveni. So if I come out and then start talking about Muhoozi, I'm not a member of any party. I don't know their politics. To me, I might even think, to me personally, because first of all, Muhoozi is President Museveni's son. You get? He's a general. He's in the army. He comes out and says and does rallies, and nothing is being said. You get, and then whatever game is there, I don't want to comment about it because NRM has not yet, and still Muhoozi is doing all this within his party, but the party has not yet come out to say we distance ourselves from Muhoozi or say that Muhoozi is the person we are fronting. Until then, that is when maybe I can comment. Okay. But to them, right now, us, the citizens, we are enjoying because we are seeing these two young blood doing whatever they are saying. That is why I said Muhoozi has made very many statements, very many tribalistic statements. What has been done? Okay, you get enough. So I don't want to comment so much around there.
Joseph, let us look at the Forum for Democratic Change. The FDC is in deep crisis. From where you're seated, I think your party has been a victim, or still remains a victim of disruption.
This is my best friend.
Of disruption. So I don't know, from the experience of the UPC, where you have one leg in the NRM, one leg outside. What advice, I don't know, how can FDC reach some sort of consensus, given your experience in UPC?
No, thank you. No, the good news for Ugandans is that UPC is not in bed with NRA. The good news is that UPC shall overcome the mess at the moment. And the fact, though, is that Betty Amongi is in the NRA cabinet, but also on the ticket of NRA. But she said publicly she's been NRA since her university days anyway. So maybe that's the smart way, the Museveni's way of working, as a matter of fact. My good brother Jimmy Wakena, unfortunately, somehow has got a special deal with Mr. Museveni, and it's a very irritating deal at all, in fact. But that said, Jimmy is not president of the party. Jimmy has never been elected president of the party. That's why I'll ask the elected leader, Alaro Tundu. Jimmy has a relation with Mr. Museveni. Jimmy occupies Uganda House illegally. A court has pronounced itself on this, up to and including the Court of Appeal. And it's only just unfortunate if only under this NRA regime, a legal order was real and that the systems worked, including enforcement of the law, including the police. Uganda House would be occupied by a legitimate president of Uganda People's Congress. But that will happen, and will happen sometime. You know that I'm almost certainly the elected president of the party, but I'm also waiting for that pronouncement in a formal way because I don't want to impose myself on that. And in part because of that, maybe I was boring you guys much earlier when I make this emphatic position. I do so because I know that I've got a voice and a responsibility to the people of Uganda and indeed also this country. Now back to our good friends in FDC. It's really unfortunate where they are at the moment. And can imagine that basically that shook NRA from 1989 and nearly allegedly won the elections and went to State House. And now all of a sudden we are talking about this. And imagine the young guy, Robert Chagulanyi, coming the other day. I'm sure guys in FDC might be feeling quite pained. So the point is, if only the wave from FDC was maintained, and if only the energy with which other political organizations come, say including NUP come, and that there is an understanding from that point of view as opposition, joining us as UPC as the oldest campaigners against this NRA dictatorship, where we would be as a country. So maybe we would already be having an elected government or an alternative government to NRA. But that said, the fact that political parties, as we talk about the football thing, football games and their rules, in UPC, the president is the one mandated constitutionally to call the delegates conference, and it would appear, I don't know about the rules of FDC, when you begin these games of semantics, it gets really, really dangerous. It gets very boring to the citizens, including your own party members. So I don't see where the impasse is going to be broken soon. But I hope somewhere, as I said, common sense progress. In UPC's perspective, it will not be very clear. Jim McKenna, once he got, they went through district delegates nominations in 2015. And while Pollar was, some people would argue, dithering, whatever the case which was going on in the then president's office, Jimmy's team thought and used the argument that maybe Pollar was trying to fight the process. They went ahead and organized the delegates conference, and that declared Jimmy president. The Pollar side went to court, and it was ruled in the Pollar's favor. Jimmy appealed, and that appeal was one that took so long, and come 2020, it was actually ruled in favor of Pollar, meaning Jimmy lost that. Why I'm saying that is now the quagmire in FDC. So quite clearly from UPC's perspective, that has been made very clear. I wish maybe the FDC constitution and provisions are this clearer. Warning to younger emergent political parties, sometimes people come and get excited playing rules where they think maybe the rule will be the one to deal with the big man syndrome. The rule might be the ones to deal with maybe Ochieno's loudmouth kind of that. So, I think we need to build systems that are reflective about long term. And that's why you see even the Uganda constitution, meaning the NRA constitution, they fudged it on age limit and I think that it was built around Obote, and then it came and caught up with Museveni both on age and term limits. FDC really, really is in a difficult situation, I think. I don't see Nanda, Latim, and the other coming together any sooner, because I think the delegates conference conflicts is a fresh one, as you rightly say. Meaning that 1 month ago, you'd think that they would have learned lessons, had internal conversations. But once Birigwa calls the delegates conference and the Madalas fire this, I don't know in terms of so much detail. It is the case that they may be leading to a split, and I've been saying this, that I'm not sure that this country needs more political parties than we already have at the moment. I think we need more responsible leaders emerging, good winners and definitely good losers.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Charity, still in the Forum for Democratic Change. Of course, you will give us your general comments, but as you do so, is that the letter from the Uganda police that has, said that they will not offer security to the Honorable Birigua's delegates conference. Some people have accused the police of taking sides. Each time there is party conflict, the police either consciously or subconsciously somehow show their hand on where they belong. I think even in the DP, I think you could see the way, the Mao group was being protected. Even, I mean, like he has also given, UPC. So is the police taking sides? Are they trying to micromanage something that should be managed internally? I don't know.
Moses, and I think that for me is the real problem. Police, actually, I wanted to address the police. One of the reasons why I was inspired to come for this show was precisely the police, constitutionally, is supposed to be a duty bearer. Never once, and that's why I said, you see, without laws, a country cannot run. As a duty bearer, one of their mandates is just to manage peace, security, and safety of Ugandans. So they ensure safety for the political parties.
Yeah.
But the Political Parties and Organizations Act gives the mandate of internal management of political processes of FDC to FDC. Never once does the police have a mandate to tell FDC you cannot run that meeting because it was called by the national chairman, so go back and harmonize. Where based on what? Where was the rule? Where was the ground? Where are they coming from? Have they just fallen from Mars? I mean, are they setting their own rules? When I read this letter, I was angered. I said, police, muswaza. I mean, you anger. You really embarrass. It's as if they don't know the law. It's as if the police who are mandated to protect the law, govern, ensure that the law is being followed, maintain law and order, don't understand the law itself, which they are supposed to make sure they are maintaining law and order over. You cannot get a political party and write to them such a letter. I read the letter carefully. They told the national chairman, go back and harmonize a position. When you go to the FDC constitution, and I haven't read that constitution up to the end, unfortunately, but I would love to read it. I'm going to do it before any other show. But I spoke to Salam Musumba, who was the deputy chairperson of FDC for a very long time. I don't know whether she still runs it.
In fact, yes.
Deputy president. I don't know whether she still holds that position or not. And Salam told me the mandate for calling for the national conference sits with the national chairman. So where was the police coming from to tell FDC if their constitution is telling them that it is their national chairman? Yes, the police told them, first go back and harmonize your position, then we can give protection to you. That is it. Read the letter.
It's entering into now personal
It has
affairs.
gotten into the affairs of the political party. How do you tell a political party, go back and harmonize your position?
If that's what they wrote,
how?
They knew.
Can't
harmonize because they're being very vague.
Exactly. How do you know you go and harmonize? Based on what? How do you know there is disharmony? Where is it? If the police wanted to say anything that they wanted to say, and notice that the police's statement comes after Patrick Amuriat Oboy came out in the press and said, we are going to stop the national conference that is being called by the national chairman. Then the police comes out and writes a statement and says, we cannot allow you to go ahead and hold this conference. So what does that say? It is so clear. Yeah. We have said we are going to stop it, and now the police is coming out to say, go back and harmonize your position. So the police has now taken aside. Is that what the police is supposed to do? Is that how the police is supposed to behave? In a democratic state? I disagree, 100%. And I think that one of the things that the police needs to do going forward is, one, to withdraw that statement, two, let the political party internal processes go on. The conversations have been going on. The two factions have not agreed. Up to now, the Nandala camp does not still agree with the national chairman camp, but the national chairman had been trying to remain in the middle of Katonga and Najanankumbi. He failed to make headway in Najanankumbi. You saw him being carried and ferried across a fence and thrown across by young people while goons took over the office at Najanankumbi. And he went and met Katonga Road. Now, if he is the national chairman, he represents all the factions to do with FDC. What is happening in FDC is unfortunate because it was one of the strongest political parties. And if it is going to split, my suggestion as a political scientist, and now I wear that hat happily, they should allow for the political party to decide its future. If they want to split, like it did with DP came up with a document which they signed with NRM, agreed to terms and conditions, and there's another DP faction which stayed wherever it is. We have never known what happened to that other DP faction. Maybe it will come up in 2021, maybe it won't come. They also kept jumping about everywhere. Some of them went into people power. Some of them stayed and said, like Lulu Mebaiga, he still says, I'm still DP, but we don't know which DP does he belong to. The one of Norbert Mao, his own DP. Which DP is which? Because we thought it is one political party which is headed by the president called Norbert
Who
Mao.
gave him the letter to stand.
And now, the mandate, as a political scientist again, UPC, from what we have seen from their party president, they can only pray for the other political parties, but not criticize them over anything or even try to share with them a creed. All political parties have ideology. All political parties have constitutions. My advice is that let's stick to what our constitutional documents are calling us to do, and we stick by those processes. If what Salam Musumba has told me is true, then the national chairman is within his right to call for a national delegates conference.
And it's the responsibility of the police to provide security and protection for both sides.
Both
Should
sides.
any of them ask for assistance
Security.
in a special, yes.
Fair enough. Retired Major, two questions from me. One is that what do you make, and this is just your opinion, by the police, saying that we shall not offer you security? Are they abdicating their responsibility? Because they are charged with the mandate to protect and offer security to all citizens of the country.
Yeah.
It is not a favor that they give to citizens. It is their mandate that we procure through paying taxes. So them coming to say that, no, now we won't offer you security. Are they abdicating their mandate? That is one. Two is that the accusations keep on coming in that, you know what, the NRM is busy antagonizing the Front for Democratic Change.
Okay, thank you so much. About the police, I think I am persuaded by the argument of Charity. And this goes even to Parliament. I think when FDC nominated their, is it the Chief Whip?
Chief Whip, yes.
The Speaker also attempted to interpret how the party should have brought the flag bearer. I was like, hey, come on.
Yes,
is it your business? Is it your business to interpret that? If a wrong person is brought, let them go and sort it out there and recall this one. It's not you. So what the Speaker did is actually similar to what the police is doing.
Correct.
Police, I have shared it with police many, many times, is that their work is to maintain law and order. What is law and order? To ensure that people are going to their garden peacefully. To ensure that people are in churches praying peacefully. To ensure that people are dancing in discourse peacefully. Whatever is going on peacefully, that's law and order. And, for example, you don't say, don't go to a market, we shall not protect you. Or will you refuse to arrest those who fight in a market because you were not protecting them? Suppose now the party says, okay, you don't offer us protection, but we shall sit. And a fight breaks. Will they not go there and say, okay, we are not coming to maintain law and order because we told you not to sit? I think police should come out clean in this. that there's no vacuum in the legal governance of political parties. Let them play by their law, and let police try to be out of it. So I think police should come a little clean. And as I said, it goes even to the speaker. I saw a similar scenario with the speaker.
Yeah.
Trying to interpret political parties, what they should do. It's not your work. So I think police should just see that, like they want people to dance in Anjenoa in peace, they should also let political parties dance in peace. If there's fighting, then they will arrest those who assaulted the other. Okay? They'll go and arrest those who assaulted the other. Now, about NRM fingers being seen in other parties, I don't think that is true. First of all, we don't want to comment into matters that is in the home of our neighbors. We believe that our parties, other parties are our colleagues, and we interface with them through iPod as equal partners. So we don't want to poke our nose into what they do in their homes. But I think the gist of the matter, in my opinion, in the case of FDC, we seem to be seeing the symptoms rather than the cause. If you interrogate the formation of FDC actually by far and large was a breakaway from NRM. So they really did not have any concrete positions of rallying people around. It started from PAFO. It came from Besige, who had been our national political commissioner in the then NRM, who is a historical, and you know the formation. So that is not sustainable. In the long run, it collapses. And that's what we told our comrades there. Said, comrades, you are going that way. You may not sustain it. We warned them. We warned our comrades.
Break away from any other political party? Do they also have where they are coming from?
No.
Because I believe every movement has where they come from.
But this one were NRM MPs, NRM ministers, NRM, you could say general, the way he calls it. These were clearly cadres of the movement that you could see, which formed the PAFO and which formed the FDC. So for us, we had warned our colleagues that, comrades, we better stay here and correct what is here if you think there's something wrong. We have internal mechanisms, self-criticisms, and methods of work. Why don't we stay here and correct it? They went. We warned them that it is not sustainable, and that is what is happening. So we are looking at the symptoms than the cause. The cause is the genesis, the formation itself. But as a party, we don't poke our nose into their affairs. It's their home. We wish them well. But it's not a sustainable venture. We had warned our colleagues, so we don't poke our nose into their matters.
Lastly, Winfred, any comments about what's happening in the FDC as the last words on the show?
What's happening in FDC, in reality, it's all about accountability. When issues of accountability come out, because we have to know, yes, money, they accept money came in. How much it came in, the issue is there, like how he's saying that we need also, without even looking at the cause of how they started, but what is the cause of the matter. They have failed to resolve the cause of the matter. And one side is like coming up, we need accountability, there needs to be transparency, and the other part is like, no, we are not giving in this. Yes, so there is a problem. They are going to fight and fight until, and of course NRM will just be there. That is what they will want.
Enjoy.
And these ones are giving the people in the seat a satisfaction. So until they sit themselves and reconcile and agree to reconcile, or we can say that because we've seen, however much they came from NRM, I don't want to go there, but we have seen like every election, away from when Besige was the leader, but we have seen now every coming election, there is one breaking off. Can we say that now they are preparing for a break off? For another break off? Could it be the cause that, okay, now this is the way to go, that in every election, there's someone who is going, there's another party that is going to be formed. Maybe now, the people who don't want to talk about transparency, talk about the money, yes, and give accountability to the other party, because it's a group, there must be accountability. You must be transparent. The person asking is part of the committee, yes? So he has to ask, maybe for them it's now their strategy. We got this money, we ate the money, we are not going to disclose because we say we need to keep confidentiality about the money. So this is the chance for us to break off. And for them, maybe that is why Nandara is fighting hard to keep the fight so that by 2025, they can easily, or even now, they can easily break off. And we think that it's because of what is gone, but maybe it was their plan that they never wanted to get away from their seats. Yeah. And then they form another
Just
party.
clarification. Okay, I had said earlier that a statement left hanging can cause more confusion. I'd just like to clarify my assertion that FDC broke from NRM. I can cite members. Amanya Mushega, Colonel Amanya Mushega, General Mugisha Muntu, Major Kazora, Winnie Byanyima, Colonel Besije, Ruzindana. These were the nucleus of NRM. And actually some have come back. But we had warned them that, comrades, things may not be right, but why don't we stay and cure it here? And they went. That's why I was saying with certainty that they were actually NRM. And we had warned them that you have no clear national cause that you have, save for breaking away. And this is not sustainable. And time has caught up with them.
You had to come in
so
and
these
count
other money things.
You had to come in and count their names.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you
he did want to leave
very much. 2 questions from us. Is it hate speech or speaking truth to power? We did attempt to answer that. Then, is the split in the Forum for Democratic Change inevitable? Only time will tell. Thank you very much, Retired Major. Thank you very much, Winnie. Thank you very much, Congressman. And of course, Director Kalebo, for your time. Of course, to the viewers, it's always a pleasure having you every single Friday afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your day. And I'll end, with telling you that, the weekend is here. Enjoy it. Make some noise, like Ali Bongo said, but make noise about good things. Yeah, but until next week, same time, same place. Bye-bye.